Welcome to the College Sports Conversations presented by the NCAA. I'm Kayla Gagnon. As part of Pride Month in June, we are talking with student athletes in the LGBTQ+ community about their journeys and college athletics experiences. This is a topic that is extremely close to my heart as a former swimmer at West Virginia University and a member of the LGBTQ+ community. A few years ago, I started my own podcast, Queer Mountaineers, and that challenges the popular narrative of what it means to be queer and Appalachian, and it's now in its 4th season. Our guests today are fellow Mountaineers, West Virginia University track and field and cross-country runners, Candace and Tig Archer. They both recently wrapped up their athletic careers at WVU, which I also graduated from, in case you forgot, but from a few seconds ago. And their story began there. Candace and Tig, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Yes. Well, happy Pride Month.
Oh, yes. It's a great month. Yeah. Get out the rainbows. I see you're wearing them.
Yes, I got my Morgan's repping some Morgantown Pride today. Clearly you guys are on a road trip right now. Do y'all have any plans for Pride Month this year?
I don't know.
I have yet to been to like a pride parade, and I really want to go to one. But
we were in San Francisco last time Pride Month, and we're like, oh, we're gonna do the pride parade, and then
it got canceled.
COVID clearly happened, so
no.
And Oregon is pretty strict right now with every bit of the COVID protocol, so I don't even think they're really gonna do much, which is the same because it's pretty open up here.
It is very open up here, and that's what I like about it. I mean, every store that I've been to, it says has like the pride flag, and then it says we welcome you, and that's amazing. So I mean, I wanted to dye my hair rainbow, but we don't have dye. But maybe like when we see her sister actually dyed her hair rainbow this month,
that's amazing. I have not been bold enough to dye my hair just yet, but you know, I haven't quite committed to the rainbow flag hair, but I'll wear that on my clothes, you know, and bandanas. That's usually something I like to wear a lot. Well, I got some fellow Mountaineers here on the podcast today. I'd like to start off with, how did you both end up at WVU?
You can start.
Yeah. Okay. So my high school coach was actually coached by Sean, which is the cross country and track coach at WVU. So he recommended that I go there, and I was like, sure, why not? Like, I've never been outside of Virginia. And it was a chance for me to get a scholarship and, you know, receive an education. So I ended up going there, and Tig's a year younger than me, so she went a year later.
Yeah, I came in. I was like, how I got to WVU and how we met are pretty similar stories. I came on my visit to WVU, and I just really loved the team and the atmosphere, but I got in a car. We were driving down the windy roads of West Virginia, and 3 runners just all slam in the car. And they're doing the introductions quickly as we're still like, I'm getting car sick. And Candace goes, hi, I'm Candace. I'm gay. And me from Texas had never heard someone introduce themselves like that.
Because in Virginia, it was just, I received a lot of support and love, and no hatred. Like, I was very lucky when I came out to have such a great support system. And so I was very comfortable with myself, and I knew that when I saw Tig that we'd be friends in some way. So I'm like, hi, I'm Candace, I'm gay, because, you know, I thought it'd have like for her an outlet to be like, oh, this team's really welcoming and open, and hopefully she'll be more comfortable with us. And so that was my little short blurb to her.
It definitely did. I was going to say, I wasn't out at the time. I definitely was starting to realize that, like, oh, yeah, I'm probably gay.
I didn't know that she was gay, but, like, just in case she was, like, we're open, like, we're a good team, you know. So
that's how we met and got to WVU.
Yeah, but we didn't start dating until 2 years later after that, I think.
Yeah.
That's amazing, though. Just casually just throw it in there. I'll pepper in the I'm gay. I love that so much.
There was nothing.
It's funny because, like, we don't want to be like, oh, gay is my identity, but, like, you also want to be, like, open and have like an inclusive environment for the team and athletes, especially in West Virginia. So you don't see like a lot of them there. Like it's just stereotypical. I think that people assume that like, you know, gay people are like not supposed to be there.
Yeah, and I remember there's like a diver who was like one of the first openly gay athletes at WVU, and he came out, I think, I want to say maybe 2 or 3 years before we ended up there. So that was definitely interesting to have around. And I gotta say, I can kind of agree with the casual, like just throw in "I'm gay" kind of thing. I did that with like some of the freshmen because it got to the point where I was just so comfortable around my teammates that, like, I was just driving the freshmen around and like just casually did maybe not so much like the "I'm gay." Oh, by the way, I'm gay. It was kind of like that. So just being, and then what's even funnier is that one of the freshmen was like, "Oh, I'm gay too," and I'm like, I'm not the only gay anymore, like,
It's definitely, I was like, it's interesting, like, how you create that environment and how it kind of grows. I was like, I think we've definitely noticed that as like as we started, we were the first ones on the team that were open about it. And it's definitely changed the environment of the team and has created a more open, and just everyone is kind of who they are and everyone's okay with that.
Yeah, because like 6 years ago when I was a freshman, the team was so different than what it is now. We just had girls that like didn't support LGBTQ, and when I came on, the coach was like, if you are mean to her or discriminatory against her, you will be kicked off this team. So he was very supportive when I came on, which is what you need. You need that support system. And then when Tig came on, I'm like, oh, I'm like the only gay person on this team, so I gotta welcome her and make sure that she feels included and welcome. But now the team is just so inclusive. Like, we love them to death. Like, they are the most supportive teammates you could ever ask for.
That's amazing. Well, back in the car and Candace introducing herself and all that, how did it go from what happened in the car ride and Tig getting car sick and all that stuff to where you are right now?
I was gonna say a long road. So that was
that's what this is all for.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I was like, that was my visit into, and so I was still in high school, and then I got into college and stuff, and as like I got to meet the team and feel more like acceptable in that place, like I came out as gay, and I think both of us knew we kind of liked each other, but we were also at a place where like I had just come out, and it was one of those things that was really hard for me to come out, and I wasn't fully comfortable in my own skin yet, I think is the correct way to say it. Yeah. And there was stuff that Candace needed to work through. So we kind of took like a year of just like, okay, we need to grow separately. And then when we were at that space where we could, we just were locked.
It clicked, and we have not been separated ever since then.
Oh,
and that was 2017, I think we started dating.
Yep. So yeah. Then it's just been like that. We're just attached at the hip at this point.
Yeah, we like basically do every run together and eat together and do whatever it is. But I could not be more grateful for a partner like her. So
she's all right.
Yeah, that's what I get.
Yeah, so, well, you two started out as teammates and you ended up getting married like almost 2 years ago now. That's crazy. Yeah. That's amazing.
The COVID year doesn't seem like it.
Yeah, I was going to say, it doesn't seem like it existed. And it was definitely interesting getting married while being a student athlete on a team. That's
yeah.
I hear wedding stories, and I'm like, we had much different weddings than everyone else that seems to have done it.
Yeah, because as a college student, you're supposed to be on a budget. Like, you're supposed to be saving money. So with the help of our teammates, like, they made it all possible with us.
Yeah.
That's amazing. What was it like, building a relationship together as student athletes? I mean, clearly you have a lot going on even outside of maintaining a relationship. What was that process kind of like?
I would say it was slightly easier because we were on the same team. So there was times when we first start dating and Candace would be like, I have to go to practice. And I'd be like, I'm going to the same practice.
Like, oh yeah, I forgot.
I was like, schedule wise, I was like, that was definitely a benefit. But you know, it was hard because especially when we first started dating, there was like that team dynamic. And I mean, there was never, we're an only women's team. There's not men. So there's no dating across the team normally, as you would have in a female and male team. And so like a lot of the stereotype or some of the fears was that like, well, if we do break up, like what's going to happen to the team? Is there going to be a divide? Especially because like we're a weird sport of in track, you're kind of individual, but in cross, like you're a completely team sport. So there was definitely that weird part of like having to manage like, okay, prioritizing the team and being there for the team and being teammates with one another, but then also still having that relationship of like when Candace is mad and there's a face that she makes that only I know, but she's doing it at practice and not getting into it at practice, but then waiting for the space afterwards. I was like, it's definitely kind of a weird give and take that you have to learn.
Yeah, I'm like establishing like those boundaries was very important for us, and we didn't want it to conflict with running and being able to have that relationship outside of running.
Yeah, and well, you mentioned planning a wedding while being a student athlete. Well, first of all, let's talk about like the engagement real quick. Was there like a proposal, or was it, what was it like? What was the engagement like?
Yeah, what was it like?
So I always make fun of Tig because she was like, oh, I'm definitely going to propose first. And I'm like, no, you're not. Like, you're leaving it up to me. And so we went to New York for New Year's Eve, and I
wanted to propose really badly.
Yeah, but I was going to do it there. And so I forgot the ring when we went, so couldn't do it there. And so when we went back to Morgantown, I found her favorite spot, and I got down on one knee and I proposed to her. And it was January.
Yeah, it was cold.
It was really cold. But I made it a priority. I was like, I'm gonna do this now. Like, you get so nervous, but like I knew she was gonna say yes.
Yeah,
that does help the nerves a little bit, right?
Yeah, and it was snowing. I think there was snow on the ground, right?
Yeah, there's snow on the ground.
So my knee was wet.
Yeah. We were dressed in like, you were in a puffy, I was in a the big heavy jackets. We were not looking nice at all, but
oh no.
It's definitely one of those things that it makes Morgantown even just more of a special place, I think, to us.
Yeah, for sure. No photography, nothing. It was in the dark. I could barely see her face.
That is such an awesome story. I mean, you probably had to make the will you marry me real quick, because you said it was cold outside, right?
Yeah, it was
Morgantown in January.
It was like 30 degrees. I was like, oh God, it's freezing outside. We are not looking nice today.
Don't. But yeah, well, pivoting to the wedding, which was in, I believe, August, right? Somewhere in the summertime, right?
Yeah, it's much warmer.
Yeah, well, can you like describe kind of more about like the process of, putting the wedding together and like the role your team played and getting that show on the road?
Yeah, I was like, it is definitely, I mean, so you're doing it as like, you're an athlete, so you're busy. And so, I mean, it was one of those things where it was like, we were engaged and we're like, when are we going to get married? I mean, we knew that we were going to, but we weren't sure. And then it just kind of like, okay, we're going to do it this summer. And we decided the summer, but we were also both athletes. So we needed to wait for our competition schedule to come out so we could plan, when is our team summer camp? When is this? When's the practice? How do we fit this wedding like in the perfect niche between all of our practice schedules?
Yeah, so like coming up with like everything, it was a bit late. I think we came up with stuff in April?
Yeah, I mean, there was like our whole food menu. I remember we were both sitting there getting treatment done, and I'm getting scraped out, and all of a sudden, like, we're going through food options. Oh, is it going to be spaghetti? Is it going to be potatoes? And then finally, it was just like this lightning bolt moment of like, we both like breakfast food.
And so we're doing a brunch menu, pancakes, eggs, sausage, like everything like that, because we love breakfast.
But there was just that funny thing of like so many of the details got worked out if we were on a run or in the training room. And I mean, you know, our training room, it's like in the basement.
Yeah.
So it's
chaotic.
not like this was like, oh, in a coffee house, we cutely designed the wedding. Like this is, you know, we're sweating or we're doing some sort of thing, and these ideas just kind of popped and it just all happened like that.
Pretty sure like rowing and soccer was in there. Like it was crowded. I remember that. And
the other nice part is because we are an all women's team, and we do our training, like all the training rooms around other women. Many of these women have wedding ideas, and so I'm sure we picked up many wedding ideas from like 5 different teams.
Yeah, because they're like, oh, I have the perfect idea. I wanted this for my wedding.
Yeah. So,
well, you talked a lot about the process of getting this wedding together, even having some input from other athletes that weren't on your team, which I think is so funny. Can you take us to like any like challenges of putting this together, or any like funny stories you want to share of it?
So our coach is like probably the most last minute coach that you're going to find.
Yeah, he does a lot of these last minute. Like you don't know your training until probably the morning of.
Yeah, and so like when it came to the date, like we had a lot of plans made, and literally, I mean, most people say the date's the hardest one, but we were literally waiting for our head coach to basically establish what the date of our wedding would be.
Because our camp is usually about, 3 days after that?
Yeah, I mean, we did our wedding, and then basically we had all the girls there, and then 3 days later, we went to a camp with all the girls again. So, I mean, that was basically almost like our honeymoon.
We spent a lot of time with our team that week.
Yeah. I was like, is there any other funny stories you can think of?
Oh my gosh, the day before the wedding.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So
we wanted to run, and so we went to a trail near the wedding venue, and it was me, Tig, and 2 of her bridesmaids that were on the team too. And so we start going. I'm like, guys, this is a 5K loop. Like, it's gonna be so quick. Like, we got it. And so we start going. And about 40 minutes later, I was like, guys, I don't think, I was in denial at first. I was like, I'm pretty sure this is a 5K.
I told you multiple times at the 10-minute mark, the 20-minute mark, and the 30-minute mark that we had not done any turns backwards. And you're like, no. It's going to loop. It's going to loop.
And at like 5 miles, we finally turn around. And I'm like, okay, guys, this is not a 5K loop. So I grabbed one of her bridesmaids, and we start running back just to try to find someone.
And I'm staying back with another one of our bridesmaids, or one of my bridesmaids, and she kind of nicked her ankle, but like it wasn't that bad, and I'm just tired. And then we're walking a little bit, and we see this lake, and on the other side of the lake, I see our car.
And it's like, it's so short, we got it.
I'm like, well, I can swim that. And so she stays back, and I jump in the lake to go swim across. And about halfway through, I can hear someone yelling, but I'm like, I'm halfway. I'm just swimming this out. And so I get to the end, and there's this little boy yelling, you can't be in the lake. You can't be in the lake. It's drinking water.
It's a reservoir.
Yeah, it's a reservoir of drinking water. And so I pop up, and there's a park ranger just standing and shaking his head at me. And he's like, well, what seems to be the problem? You're not supposed to be in there. And I'm like, oh, my friend, she really twisted her ankle back there. Like, it's bad. And I was like, we need help. And so he gets in his car, and we're driving back, and we get there. And at this point, like, I don't have any way to communicate with her to like, hey, really milk this ankle thing. And so we get there, and I'm like, Avery, how is your ankle? Like, you twisted it really bad.
She's like, oh man, yeah. It's so bad.
She starts limping to the cart. She played it off perfectly. And then we got our ride back to the start.
So it ended up being like a 10-mile run for 2 of us.
Yeah.
And it was supposed to be like 3. So we were out there for a while.
Oh my God, that is so funny. Well, we've talked about all the build up to the wedding. Kind of like, just can you share a little bit about what, the day was like, the emotions, the things that happened, all that stuff?
Well, I didn't see most of the day because I was so busy getting ready. Tig
we had 2 different wedding experiences.
Tig dealt with most of the wedding fiascos that happened the day of. Meanwhile, I was getting pampered by her family, and I'm getting my hair done, and I'm putting on this dress.
She's getting spoiled. There was a part where someone's like, Tig, does Candace have a lunch? You need to prepare Candace a lunch. And I'm like, what about a lunch for me? But that's just how it was. She was in this separate room getting spoiled, and I was there. I was all my bridesmaids, and I had guys too, so bridesmen, I don't know, basically set up the wedding. So there was times I would just hand them stuff, we got these flowers, I'm like, go take these and put them on this tree. And they're like, how? And I'm like, I don't know, just figure it out. And we had all these chairs, and I'm like, go take these chairs and set them up. How do you want them set up? Make them look nice. I was like, we just did it that way, and it was basically a whole mess. And then people were coming in because we did a banquet style, and so people were coming in with food, and they're like, where do we put the food? And I'm like, this table, and that table got changed maybe 20 times. And Candace didn't know any of this.
No, but the great thing was that having so many teammates, instead of gifts, they brought food.
Yeah.
So it was a giant potluck, and it was amazing.
Yeah, we'd done brunches basically throughout the year during the fall for cross, build team. We'd always do team brunches. And so that was our idea is hey, we don't want any wedding gifts. We just want you to bring a dish of food.
Yeah. And yourself, obviously. We want them there too.
And so that's just kind of how we catered the entire wedding.
Yeah.
So
It's you kind of described a little bit of the chaos and setting it up and all that stuff. But, what were some of the emotions going through your mind through this whole process besides the chaos of it?
It's weird. We have been together for a while, and it's just one of those weird things of she's gonna say I do.
Yeah, it's not I'm gonna be nah, I don't want to anymore.
We were in the middle of Virginia, kind of nowhere. Even if she wanted to run, it would have been a very far run for her to get away from me. But you just get so nervous. I remember saying our vows and
yeah, we were so nervous reading our vows. I think it was just because everyone's staring at you, but they love you so much, and even if you messed up, they'd love you anyway. And
I think it's also you're just to us marriage, it's that thing of it's very sacred, and it's something that you're vowing your life to, and we hold it very close to ourselves. And so when you have to do that in front of basically all of your family and everyone that's important to you in your life, it just it definitely gets to you, and it's hard, but it was
you just want it to be perfect.
There's that thing of Candace walked down the aisle to Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and I'm I'm not a crier. I was I'm not gonna cry.
My dad was holding me, he was giving me away, and
right when I saw her and she started walking, I started bawling, and I'm like, what are you doing? You've seen her a million times.
And I'm I can't cry because I'm wearing makeup, and what was it? Abby, our close friend and teammate, she was the one that
did the whole
married
ceremony.
us, yeah. And so that was very emotional, just seeing her at the end of the aisle, and she was bawling her eyes out too. And I think a lot of people were crying. My other bridesmaid Emily was crying. It was just it was happy tears though. It was just something that we wanted to do.
Yeah.
To do it in front of everyone that we loved. It was super awesome.
I remember seeing the pictures on Facebook. It looked like a really beautiful day.
It was one of those things where it's I remember setting up the whole chaos to it, but at this point I just smiled because it came together so perfectly, and everything. It probably wasn't perfect, but in your eyes when you're there, it just doesn't matter. And so it was one of those things where it was exactly what we wanted. It was around all the people that we wanted and needed, and so it just made a really special moment.
Yeah, it was a perfect day in my eyes, and I wouldn't have traded for anything in the world. Like I look back on it and I'm like, I want to do that again. I still get goosebumps thinking about it.
Oh my God. Well, clearly your teammates, I mean, I think we've established at this point that y'all are really close to your teammates. They straight up helped your wedding go smoothly. One of them even married you too. What's your relationship now after graduating from WVU?
I was like, it's that weird thing of like, so our teammates through COVID, I mean, we have like a lot of international teammates too, and they just couldn't go home. And so they all came to our home, like, and they like became family. I was like, and that's just kind of, I was like, it's that weird thing with teammates that you develop is like eventually at a certain point they cross the line of, oh, you're a teammate to
your family. Like forever, your family.
And so I was like, it's kind of that, like, you know, we've gone through some really hard times with our teammates. We've gone through some really great times with our teammates. And so let's kind of develop that really close, like, relationship and like bond of like, no, like, I don't see them as a teammate. Like, they're like my sister. Like, I treat them like my sister. I'll mess with them like my sister. I'll yell at them like my sister, and I'll love
fight
with them.
like, we'll fight with them like sisters, and we'll love them. At the end of the day, like, they are nothing else but sisters and family.
Yeah. So I was like, it's one of those weird things that's like, and I think it's like, you know, it's special, like, because you don't develop that with everyone. And I don't think we'll have, I mean, maybe we get lucky and we do it again, but I think it'll be a very rare point that we get to develop so closely with this group. And part of that is because, like, we are gay. And so, like, coming out, the first person I came out to was Amy Cashin, who's a teammate of mine, who's now a sister. Like, you know, it's just one of those things where you also go through those experiences and those sort of like difficult moments with them that really kind of, when you go through that, you can't. Yeah, you can't.
It bonds you forever.
You've shared your story with outlets like, it's Outsports, I believe it is. Yes, Outsports. Why do you think it's important to, share these wonderful details of your story together?
We are not the only gay people to step on an athletics team. I think it's important for teams to see that and be welcoming of other future generations that will come onto that team. Like, there can be an inclusive environment. There can be that support for each other. And, like, it's all possible, you know?
I just, like, adding on, I just think, like, it's one of those things where as much as you want there to be visibility, there's definitely in sports a hard line. And there's not so much. And there's some people that stay hidden because they're trying to protect their identity in sports. And so I think that's what we do is we try. I was like, we had a class with a professor. Both of us actually were in the class.
Oh, yeah.
And it was when we were dating. And the professor was an openly out professor who had definitely dealt with a lot of discrimination in his time being at WVU because he was openly out. And I asked him, because this was when we were young dating, and I'm like, well, what do we do? I was like, we keep getting harassed on campus and like we're dealing with this, like what do we do? And he said, you have to be visible. And so I think that's just something that's always stuck with us, is that you can sit back and, try to pretend that these issues aren't pertaining to you, but they do pertain to us, and we do have a voice, and we're supposed to be visible. And luckily we get to do it together, right? When
it's harder when you're alone.
We have tough days, like I get to go back to Candace and she gets to comfort me, and not everybody has that. Not everybody has a supportive network like we do. And so the fact that we're lucky enough to at least have all those things makes it to where even more, I think we have to be visible and show people that, like, no, we're here. And even if you disagree with it, we're staying, and we're still going to be here.
And we're going to fight for what we deserve for. Like, we deserve love. We deserve opportunity, and we deserve each other, and we deserve everything, And
I mean, I think that's it too, right? Is like, I mean, I've had family members who definitely were more on the conservative side with a lot of these issues, but it's one of those things when they get to meet us and they really see our personality and how much I just genuinely love Candace and she loves me, it makes it hard for them to disagree with it,
What's next for you two? You both graduated from WVU, as student athletes. What's next?
Well, we're moving to New York. Tig's going to go to school for her master's program in social work.
I'm getting my
Congratulations.
master's degree in social work. Yeah, I'm very into policy work. I'm very interested in a lot of work, especially also from West Virginia, the opioid epidemic and addiction and prison reform. So I was like, that's where I sort of find my niche. And then besides, I was like, the great part about running is you kind of never leave the sport. So I was like, I'm planning on continuing to do marathon training and see where that takes us.
And then I'll be a coach at Columbia, and I'll get to continue my dream of running and hopefully some more road races in my future and cross races to come, and working with our nonprofit organization, Every Kid Runs, which kind of got put on hold for a bit this semester just because of some family things, but just planning to expand that to New York since we're so nomadic. I feel like everywhere needs a place to have resources for those kids that need it.
What are some things from your student athlete experience that you'll carry with you into your future together?
That's a hard one. Definitely the attitude that you carry yourself with. Bring positivity wherever you go. Like, don't let people, define you. Be, like you said before, being visible.
I was going to say, for me, so I came from Texas and it was very hard for me to come out as gay. And I was going to say, my whole experience has sort of been, this balancing of, no, there's balancing of, no, wait, I don't think I'm gay. And then realizing, yes, I'm gay. And also, that idea of I don't want gay to be my identity. And it's that thing of, as being a student athlete and having a role, you realize that you kind of have to balance it of no, it's not my entire identity, but there is a platform that I have to speak on. And there is this part that I do have to push these opportunities and push the boundaries, especially at WVU, we don't have the most open campus. Most of the harassment we've faced has been at student athletic sanctioned events. And so it's pushing the athletic director and pushing, whoever, those people in charge of saying, hey, we need to step up in this way because, as athletes, we do have a voice. And even though I didn't want that to be my identity, I didn't want it to be everything, you do have to sort of take that on and you need to step up to help push that role of inclusion and diversity.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much, Candace and Tig, for joining us today and sharing your story and for being so open about sharing it with others. It really means a lot to me personally and I'm sure to everybody listening right now.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Of course. And thank you to our audience for tuning in throughout this month as we celebrate Pride Month. For more of me behind the mic, you can also check out the Queer Mountaineers podcast on iTunes and Spotify and wherever else you get your podcasts from. This has been College Sports Conversations presented by the NCAA, and we look forward to talking with you again.